Hello everybody, Jeremy Siskind here. I'm the author of the Solo Standards for Piano series, the Jazz Piano Fundamental series, and playing solo jazz piano. I really enjoyed receiving orders at jeremysiskind.com. You can buy the books on Amazon as well, but it just gives me this nice feeling when I see an order come in, which I can't do on Amazon. Pop on over to jeremysiskind.com. Today's catchy video title is 251 Taxonomy. We all love a taxonomy. So we're looking at different kinds of 251s, and I'm trying to think of every different variety, every different name. Let's just pretend. I know a lot of people who watch my channel are very experienced in jazz, but let's just pretend for a second you don't even know the basics of what a 251 is. So the first really important thing to know is that 251 has become the most important, the most standard chord progression in jazz. So if you're playing a jazz standard, it's very likely that you're going to see quite a lot of 251s. And therefore, it is very efficient to practice 251s. And the 251 sounds and looks like this. Or in very simple root position, in the key of C, we might have a D minor 7 as the 2. The 2 is always a minor 7. A G dominant 7th for the 5, or in root position, it could be that. The 5 is always dominant. And then a major 7th for the 1. So 2, 5, 1. So if you've heard Autumn Leaves, for instance, it starts with that 2-5-1 progression. All right, I know that that's review for many of you, but just in case, it's good to go over those basics. So what are some different sorts of 2-5-1s that we encounter in jazz? Here's our 2-5-1 taxonomy. So the first two examples here have to do with rhythm. Okay, they're going to be the only two that have to do with rhythm. So we sometimes talk about a short form 2-5-1, and then the next one, I'll spoil it, is a long form 2-5-1. And these, like I said, refer to the harmonic rhythm. How frequently, how quickly or slowly are the chords changing? So in a short 5-2-5-1, nope, didn't say that right. In a short form 2-5-1, it's just going to be 2 beats each for the 2 and the 5 chord, and then potentially 4 beats for the 1 chord. So if we're thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1. One example where you can hear a short form 2-5, it doesn't go to the 1 immediately, but it has those 2 beats for the 2 and the 5 chord, is Satin Doll by Duke Ellington / Billy Strayhorn. It starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So this is going by quickly. And so we could contrast this with a long form 2-5-1, in which the 2 and the 5 chords are a measure each, and then the 1 chord is 2 measures. So like Autumn Leaves it starts with a long form 2-5-1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So why is it important to distinguish between a short form and a long form 2-5-1? Well, if we're learning 2-5-1 licks, which we commonly do in the jazz as we're practicing in the jazz style, then we actually really need to learn different licks for short form 2-5-1s and long form 2-5-1s. And you might wonder, well, can't we just double the length of the notes in the lick of a short form 2-5-1? And the answer is no, because remember, we swing in jazz, and the rhythmic footprint that we have is very crucial to how something sounds. So for instance, if I take this nice short form 2-5-1 lick, and I try to make it for long form 2-5-1, it would literally be 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just very rhythmically kind of awkward and slow moving over the long form 2-5-1. So usually we learn a lick and then we just apply it to either the short form or the long form 2-5-1s. All right, now that's all we're doing with rhythm here. The next type of 2-5-1 is one that many of you might be familiar with. It's called a backdoor 2-5-1. I don't like the position of this quote mark. Let's see if we can make that better. Or a little bit better. Backdoor, nope, still bad. Still bothering me. Backdoor 2-5-1. And so this refers to kind of a mismatched 2 and 5 on one hand and 1 on the other hand, right? If we look at this progression, the F minor 7 to B flat 7 seems like it should resolve to E flat, but it does not. Instead, it resolves up a whole step to C. This is this is surprisingly common progression in music, in a lot of jazz tunes. Just Friends. Hear it? That's your backdoor 2-5-1. You'll hear it in Misty as well. Listen. Now, there's not necessarily an easy explanation to why this works, but the way that I think of it is that it's a variation of a minor 4 to 1 progression. We do this a lot in classical music. So in this case, the F minor is kind of acting as the minor 4. It's in a jazz style. And it resolves in its own kind of jazz influenced way to that 1 chord. Now, one important thing to know when we see this backdoor 2-5-1 is that we want to think about the Lydian dominant. Ooh, sorry, it jumped on me. We want to think about using the Lydian dominant mode to make a melody. So in this case, it would be the B flat Lydian dominant, or F melodic minor. Same notes in both of those scales. And I'll give you the reason quickly. You might have to pause the video and work this out for yourself, but it's because we're going to the overall key of C major, and that mode includes the major third of C major, the note E natural. So we don't really want to use the F Dorian, B flat Mixolydian like we usually would. We want to use F melodic minor, which is the same notes as B flat Lydian dominant. All right, next one is a tritone 2-5. And so what's happening here is that we're using a tritone sub to target our 1 chord. So instead of a G7, like we would usually expect, it's a C. Instead of using a G7, it's a D flat 7. Cool, just losing my mind here. And then we add the 2 that naturally goes with that D flat 7. So that's getting a little further out from the key. Okay. This is another progression you can hear in Satin Doll. So it's kind of an unexpected resolution, and yet there is this really nice continuity between D flat 7 and C major, because those chords are closely associated, because D flat is so often traded out for a G7. So that's a tritone 2-5. A sidestep 2-5 actually refers to two 2-5s that are placed together. So at the end, we have our normal 2-5-1, kind of what we expect, D minor 7, G7, C major. But above that, we have that progression moved up by a half a step. So we take D minor to G7, and we move it up a half a step, E flat to A flat, D to G, and then down to C. And this is both a progression that you will find in tunes themselves, but it's also spontaneously added by musicians to add color to tunes. The example that always springs to mind for me is at the end of the first half of There Will Never Be Another You. Usually the progression would just be F minor 7, B flat 7. But this is a common place that hit musicians, if they've gone to college or whatever, will put in F sharp minor, B7, and then F minor, B flat 7. Okay, so it might be part of the tune, or it might be something that spontaneously gets added to the tune. Now this one's kind of cheating, but I thought I would include it, which is 3-6-2-5. Okay, so we're taking a traditional 2-5 and we're adding to it, but it's so common, so important that I thought I would mention it. And I have here, we always call it a 3-6-2-5. From a theoretical perspective, oftentimes that 6 chord is a dominant chord, which I would say technically it should be 3, and then that's acting as the 5 of 2. Stop skipping on me. This is acting as the 5 of 2, 5. So it could be minor. I think more often, right, we're going 3 and then a dominant 6, which is the 5 of 2, D minor, G7. And because that 2 is a minor key center, when we do the 5 of 2, we almost always are going to want to use a flat 9 and a flat 13 in that dominant chord. So on that A7, we want a B flat and an F to reflect the fact that we're moving towards a minor key center. You'll be able to get the color right, or closer to what you want if you use those alterations. Okay, a minor 2-5. This is a bit banal, but very important, right? A minor 2-5 generally consists of a half diminished 2 chord and then a dominant 7th flat 9. Flat 13 is implied. Now, the biggest debate here is what kind of 1 chord to have. In the real book, you're usually going to see it listed with just a C and then a dash from minor. Non-committal about what any upper extensions might be. In my own charts and in my books, I usually say C minor 6. And this is to stop students who aren't thinking to play from automatically playing a C minor 7, which isn't really a tonic minor chord. If you haven't heard of minor 2-5-1, it sounds something like this. Now, I have 2 variations of this minor 2-5-1 as my final entries into this taxonomy. And these are kind of interesting, I think, because they could both be considered inversions of the 2 chord. So the first one is this A flat major 7 sharp 11. So instead of D half diminished, we're putting A flat on the bottom. But you pretty commonly see this progression. This flat 6 to 5 to 1. And it's quite pretty. So again, compare, here's 2, 5, 1, flat 6, 5, 1. Very similar colors. I don't know if my iPad's going to cooperate on this last one. Yeah, as long as I keep 2 fingers on it, it totally will. So this is a minor 4 to 5 to 1. And F minor 6 really is an exact inversion of D half diminished. So you get... Okay, I'm going to take my fingers off and play nicer voicings. So here's F minor 6, G7. Compare that to regular 2-5-1. Almost the same, a slightly different color with that different bass note on the bottom. So I would argue that both of those are different versions of that minor 2-5-1. All right, just for fun as a grand finale, let me play all of these different 2-5-1 versions. So we've got a short form, long form. I'm doing the rest as short forms just to save time. They could be short form or long form. Backdoor, tritone, side step, 3-6-2-5, Thank you so much for watching, everybody. If this is fun for you, if you'd like more information, I'd recommend working through my Jazz Piano Fundamentals series. I did try to put like everything I know about jazz piano into 3 volumes. Here's 2 of them. If I had a third hand, I would show you all 3 at once. Thank you very much for watching. We were talking about taxonomy, so why don't you say something about taxes if you've watched this far. Thanks for watching.